that, then I'll start everything. Right, okay. Be with you in 2 minutes. There's always lastminute.com. We can't help it. Not sure why. Let me send it to her. Right, okay. She's going to be joining Madeline, and we're going to be ready to start, ready to roll, as they say. I was teaching somebody how to use Zoom this week. Well, supposed to be teaching somebody how to use Zoom. And they actually ended up teaching me things. I thought, oh my days, this is crazy. It's too funny. But she's more computer literate than me. So she highlighted to me that I'm a technophobe.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of quite good. So yeah, she should be joining in 1 minute. We pray. So this is my fourth workshop. My fourth workshop on Zoom. I was actually introduced to the whole concept of it by Just Tickets, which is the ticketing platform that I use. I support them because it's a Black business, and I think it's important for people of color, Black people, to support each other's businesses when we can. I used to use Eventbrite, but I saw the light and I started using Just Tickets, and I would encourage people, particularly in light of what's happened with COVID and the whole thing about social inequality, which has been outlined, which relates to all aspects of our life. And I think that, once we can be supportive of each other in terms of our endeavors when it comes to businesses or whatever, it will help in terms of strengthening our community.
Yep, totally agree.
So yeah, so that's my plug.
Yep, I agree. Totally agree with that.
I wasn't paid for it. One more lady, we'll be starting. I think everyone's here. Okay. Sorry, Paul, can I just ask a question? When I click on mute, does it mute everybody? I was gone. I can't hear me.
I think it does actually. I think you have the control, that mute.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I think you have the control there. So people have found it better if you mute everyone and only you talk, because then you don't get any feedback or cut-offs.
Yeah, that's what.
And then we have the option to unmute ourselves if we want to say
right,
something.
okay. Shows how much I know. Right, I'm going to mute everybody. Right. Okay. Welcome to this presentation. It's entitled Becoming a Woman of Influence. I'm going to be touching on all aspects of influence, because this workshop is inspired by my faith as well. But it is also about how we can utilize media and PR to increase our impact and our influence. Okay. One of the things I do before I continue, I do say to people, if they want to ask questions, I'm very open for you to kind of stop and put your hand up, as you can do with Zoom, to just ask me questions, because I'm sharing. I want you to understand what I'm sharing, and if there's things that are unclear, please do stop me so that I can clarify. So yeah, it's entitled Becoming a Woman of Influence in Media and PR. And the first thing I want to say, who am I? I run a company called MD Public Relations. I've been religious columnist at The Voice for over 25 years. I used to edit a magazine called Keep the Faith magazine, which is a leading magazine about Britain's Black faith community here in the UK. I'm the founder of the DTS Women's Ministry Breakfast. I've held about 13 of those now. I was hoping to have one in June, but obviously because of the lockdown, everything's changed, so I might have it online. I'm the co-founder, along with a guy called Roy Francis, of a group of seminars called Pathways to Music Ministry Success. I'm also the former organizer of an event called the Wise Women Awards. I've been a recipient of a number of awards over the years. I was actually given an Inspirational Woman of the Year award at the Wise Women Awards after I had stopped working on it. And about 3 years ago, I received a legacy award for service to the faith communities. That's after I've been at The Voice, as I said, 25 years, and the organisers of that award felt it fit to give me an award, which I was really grateful for. Here's some of the clients that I've worked with. Some I've made influential. I've worked with music companies, Psycho Music, Sony Music, the NHS, Christian Aid, YMCA, BET, GMTV, Angela Marr, Noel Robinson, Zoe Records, Church of God in Christ, and many, many, many more. Can you see my slides? Just let me know if you can see my slides.
I can.
You can. Okay, just wanted to check. Right, this is my definition of influence. So it's about, this workshop is about being a person of influence. It's about having the power to have an effect on people or things, or being a person that is able to do this, or someone who can affect change in terms of how someone develops, behaves, or thinks. We are Christians, so the Bible says that you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I believe that there's a biblical imperative for us to be influential. I think we all know that, but I think it's always good to be reminded of that, particularly sometimes as many of us, I think most of us on this Zoom meeting, we're grown up in a Pentecostal church, which sometimes really hammers home that we should be humble to the point that we don't let ourselves shine, but we're called to be an influence. So sometimes being an influence means being and a light and salt, so it means being out there. So my journey to influence, I've been writing at The Voice for over 20, well, actually over 30 years now. And I have to say, as a young person, I always wanted to be powerful and influential, but I didn't really know in what. I just really wanted to be powerful and influential. It was just something in me. I initially, when I went to university, South Bank, it was called South Bank Polytechnic at the time, and I studied social science with a view to being a social worker. But whilst I was studying there, I started working at The Voice in 1988, part-time, doing as a receptionist. They had offices in Bow Road. In fact, they weren't very nice offices, to be honest, but it helped supplement my grant. And then the opportunity came for me to do the Soul Stirrings column, which I still do. And at that time, you know, I'm a second generation Black woman working on The Voice, which was one of the few Black publications out there. And it became a leading publication. At its peak, the circulation was about 50,000. The readership was 250,000. You know, I was doing the gospel page, which used to be the page that everybody turned to gospel music news, church news. It was, my column was a must-read for the Black community. In fact, the column, I was told by the editors that at the time, in the times when my column got dropped because they had too much advertising, the sales of the publication actually fell. My column was very, very, very popular. And, you know, I had a voice. I didn't realize or recognize how powerful that voice was, but I had a voice, and people used to listen or read what I had to say and take note of what I had to say. Some people used to dislike me for what I had to say, because that was the power of the voice that I had, which is cool. When I was younger, it was a problem, but now that I'm older, I don't really care. I started a PR company 12 years ago, because one of the things I recognized whilst working at The Voice was that the churches didn't really properly utilize the media, and my company was really set up to help them utilize the media better. I got to organize the Wise Women Awards, which is an event that recognizes the achievement of Christian women. And I started my DTS breakfast, and all of those things have helped me to become a person of influence. I mean, I'm sure that all of you that are listening to me talking, you're influential in your own right. And you will find, as I proceed in this workshop, it's the things that you do and doing them well that make you influential. I did want to be powerful and influential, but it wasn't something that, as I was doing my work at The Voice or doing my PR company, that I sat and thought, wow, I'm powerful, wow, I'm influential. But my work gave me the ability to influence, and I had a little bit of power, which I pray and I've asked God that I use the power and the influence that I have wisely to serve my community. And I believe that God has enabled me to do that. Here's some qualities that I think that women that are influential have. That's why I said that, you know, we are all women of influence, because we can all influence others within our sphere of influence. We help people discover their purpose. We encourage and support others. That's what influential women do. We play a part in building a better society. If we're mothers, we raise emotionally healthy children. If we're married, we help our spouse fulfill their vision. We set an example at home, work, and church. And by example, I mean example that other people can be inspired by and want to follow. We work to transform community, society, and the nation. And as Christian women, we point people to Christ. A woman who is influential, they know who they are and they understand their purpose. They have integrity. An important thing is that they are consistent in what they do. We live in an age where lots of women, including Christian women, they want to be all that. They want to be up there. They want to be the person that everybody sees. But oftentimes, women who want to be that, they're not consistent in what they do. And what you will find in your step to be a woman of influence, a woman who raises her game and in the process helps raise the game of others, is that there's an element of consistency in what an influential woman does. So they're not here, there, and everywhere. They're consistent because they're purposeful and they're doing what they believe God has called them to do. Influential women aim to be the best they can be in their fields of endeavor. They blaze a trail for others to follow. So my first pastor was a woman, a dynamic woman, and you know, she did a lot in the community. She set up care homes for the elderly. She used to run a vocational Bible school for children, and she used to network with leading churches and charities. That's Black charities and charities in the wider community. And she blazed a trail in the denomination of which she was part of. An influential woman will take risks. There'll be calculated risks, but she'll take risks. And an influential woman, of course, is a woman of faith. So I did say that I would illustrate my talk with case studies. And one of the women that I'm going to put before you is a woman called Pastor Marjorie Isomwe. She's a co-pastor of a church called Triumphant Church International, and she runs a ministry called Wisdom for Women International. She's also the founder of the Wise Women Awards. She runs conferences, retreats, and events in the UK, Europe, Africa, and the Americas. And by the Americas, I mean Canada and America. She distributes school uniforms. So she raises money to pay for school uniforms and educational items in her hometown in Nigeria. She's often asked, because of how she's perceived, she's often asked to speak at business, international, and community events. And of recently, she's now started speaking at a forum called the Crans Montana Forum, which helps devise strategies for African women in leadership. So I actually asked her a couple of questions in terms of, why does she think that she's a woman of influence? What's her mantra? What's the ethos that she lives by? And this is what she came back to me. I've edited it for this workshop, but she says that she is on a mission to change the way people think about themselves and judge their abilities. She says she organizes the Wise Women Awards for people to see what others are achieving and to be challenged to to fulfill their own purpose and destiny. She meets a lot of people who constantly say to her, thank you for changing her life, my ministry, her marriage, because she believes that influence is about changing lives. And one of the things about Pastor Marjorie, because I've actually worked with her, she's very much a woman of faith and prayer. So everything that she does prayerfully. She will put it before the Lord. And if she feels that the Lord is saying, don't do that, don't go there, she doesn't. She moves by the Holy Spirit and follows the Lord's leading. And she also trains women, and she teaches women about the power of prayer. She teaches them, the whole thing about healing and deliverance, because she thinks that is really important. If you follow her on Facebook, you'll also see that she likes taking a lot of pictures, but she also loves the Lord. And her life mantra, the mantra that she lives by, is that God makes all things beautiful in his time. So don't manipulate, always wait for God's perfect time. I will say one of the key things that has made Pastor Marjorie the woman that she is today, in terms of how she's perceived by the wider community, is the fact that she does the Wise Women Awards. I don't know if any of you have been blessed to go, but it's an event where she recognises the achievements of Christian women. And one of the two things about that, one, she's been consistent in doing it. I think it's now in the 16th or 17th year. And secondly, it provides a platform where women are recognised. And the thing about being influential sometimes is that if you can provide a platform for people, you become influential, because if it's a good platform, people will want to be part of it. I've been at the awards and I've seen women who've received MBEs, that's an award from the Queen, actually cry upon receiving a Wise Women Awards. I think it's because, their faith is so important to them. So to be recognized for being a Christian and the work that they do, it's really, really very special to them. So PR and media, as you know, I'm a PR specialist, and I think that PR and media is a key tool that you can use to build influence, to become influential. And with regards to PR involves developing strategies to increase your influence by communicating who you are and what you do to your target audience. And by tool, just to expand a bit, media is a tool of communication. So it's anything that you can use that will communicate something about who and what you are. So why would you want to use PR to influence? You want to use PR because you want to be salt and light. That's what God's called us to be. You use media because you might have a cause that you want to promote. You might want to highlight something that you're involved in. For instance, I'm involved in an initiative. I've worked with people that are promoting how to recognize cancer. I've worked on domestic violence initiatives. I've worked on anti-knife crime initiatives. So you use, and we've used the media to try and promote that for us. You know, as Christians, we want to promote positivity and inspiration. As Christian women, we want to spread the gospel and godly values. We want to encourage people to follow peace. You know, Christian people getting in the media, we become a witness to others of God's power. You know, obviously, if you're a business person, you run a charity, you get in the media because you want to raise awareness of what it is that you're about. But we want to use the media for good, positive things. So when you're setting on the path to be an influence, you need to understand why you want to influence, who you want to influence, and how you're going to go about being influential. So PR, like I said, PR is a major tool that you can use. I'm going to repeat again, PR is about communicating who you are and what you do to your target audience, because we all have an audience that we want to reach. And there's a whole host of things that you can use, many that you can use that are inexpensive. So you can conduct PR campaigns quite inexpensively, but effective in terms of hitting the mark of what it is that you want to do, want to achieve, what you want to communicate. So there's things like leaflets, there's newsletters, brochures, magazine, pamphlets, books, ebooks. Things like leaflets now, they're very cheap now. You know, I did an event with Angela Marr about 6 years ago, and I had 1,000, was it 1,000? Yeah, it was 1,000, was it 5,000? I can't remember now. You know, when you do events and after a while you forget, but I had a lot of leaflets done and it cost me £122 for that. And that was to help promote an event at a venue that seated 500 people. Newsletters, you know, you can get free templates to do newsletters now. If you have a Mac, they have newsletter templates. If you've got a normal Word computer, they've got templates for newsletters. There's websites where you can go that you can get free templates. So there's no cost to you, even in terms of books and ebooks, which you can use to communicate. There's somewhere on the internet where you can get free templates that you can use. Events are always good tools to use to communicate what you're about. You can either put on an event or you can piggyback on an event. And by that, I mean, you know, if somebody is having an event, you can ask if they'll give you a 5 or 10 minute slot so that you can actually go and speak at that event. So the cost to you will really be your time and the money that you have to pay, whether you drive or you take public transport to actually get to that event. So I've worked on campaigns where I've approached churches. I remember once I worked on a campaign to encourage more Black people to be organ donors. And we visited about five churches, and I had the opportunity to give like a 5-minute talk in the church service, which was really, really very good. There's a whole thing about press, that's newspapers, radio, TV, internet, always good places to be able to talk and communicate what you're about. Media relations in terms of producing tools that you can send to the press, like press releases, videos increasingly. So I keep forgetting to take out DVDs and CDs because they're a bit, you know, they're back in the day. They're kind of consigned to the history now because they were from a different time. There's a whole thing about the internet that you can use your website, blogs, email marketing to communicate what you're about. And then, of course, there's a whole thing about social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. There's a whole host of them. I've just listed a few, but these are some of the PR tools that you can use to help communicate what you're about, help you in the path to becoming a woman of influence in whatever sphere that you're in. Any questions? some of the PR tools that you can use, they are inexpensive. For instance, like databases. You know, if you put on an event, you host an event, for instance, you can collect the email addresses of the people that come. Those email addresses or their telephone numbers can form the basis of your database. There's places where you can store that information. MailChimp is helps people to store databases in terms of email addresses and stuff like that. And I understand that you can input up to 2,000 emails for free. I don't know if they've changed that. I'm on a different one called Constant Contact, which I pay for, but there's somewhere you can input a certain amount of names and addresses for free. Databases are always good because you will collect the names of people that have been to your events or expressed an interest in something that you've done. So they're kind of warm contacts that you can kind of communicate with. Hopefully there'll be people that have formed part of your databases. Obviously blogs are a good thing that you can use in terms of expressing yourself, talking about what you do. There's quite a number of people, that's individuals, businesses, charities that use blogs to communicate what they're about. The whole thing about leaflets, it's a very cheap and effective way to communicate what you're about. Social media, the only cost for you there is your time, really, and putting the effort in to get as much as you can out of utilizing social media. Media relations, again, getting press coverage, it's your time, but it can be really effective in helping you to communicate what you're about. Websites, e-newsletters, events, and networking. These are all inexpensive PR tools that you can use to communicate what you're about and help you in that road to becoming a person of influence. I think it's important for me to kind of say a bit about social media. I know that I've got Lorna's on here, who's a social media expert, but yeah, social media has kind of revolutionized the way that we communicate, the way that we access information. What's also been good about social media is that people have utilized it to have influence. So when I first gave this presentation, which I've changed a little bit, I mentioned 2 people that have used social media effectively, but not positively. Now, we know that there used to be what was described as a terrorist group called ISIS, that used to encourage young people, predominantly Muslims from across the world, to go to the Middle East to engage in jihad or whatever. They recruited people utilizing social media, and they did it very, very, very effectively. And that's why one of the things why I really like to stress to Christians that it is so important that we learn and understand the power of PR, what it can be used to do. And if young people can utilize social media to encourage people to leave the comfort of the West, to go to the Middle East, to fight. Just imagine as Christians, as Christian women, if we kind of really put our thinking caps on and looked at ways in which we could utilize social media to not only transform the world, but kind of impact our community, help them to think differently, help them to think more positively about themselves and life. You know, it would just be so transformative. We would look at God and say, wow, God, why didn't we think of that before? So in terms of social media, I personally think that anybody who's wants to impact their world effectively and dynamically, then they should be on social media. These are some of the social media that exist. There's Facebook, with currently 2.2 billion people use it every month. Twitter, 300 million people use it. I don't like Twitter. I'm just putting it out there. Instagram, 800 million people on it, or has it gone up to 1 billion? YouTube, 1 billion people on it. Pinterest, 100 million. LinkedIn, which is for professionals, 650 million. Periscope, which is a kind of streaming kind of social media network, 10 million. Snapchat, 158 million, and WhatsApp, which is 1 billion. I use, out of all of them, I use Twitter, but I use Facebook the most. I'm increasingly using Instagram, and I use WhatsApp, and I find that and email, and I find that quite effective in terms of helping me to achieve what I need to achieve. So the benefits of social media, it's an effective way to share information. It gives you direct reach to your audience. You can build online relationships, i.e. if there's people that you feel you need to connect with, you can follow them. You can engage in conversations that they may start. You can comment on their posts. You know, it is a good way to get people to notice you. You can communicate with people in real time on social media. It's free. The only cost is your time often. And people have, and people are using it to become influential. But it's the people who become influential on social media are people that have devised a strategy in terms of how they're actually going to utilize it. They're very consistent in terms of the message that they share on it. They make an effort to kind of understand how it works. They make sure they use it to make the right kind of connections with people, that they follow the people that they need to follow in terms of their target audience. And they make sure that what they post in terms of their content will attract people, attract followers, and help them in being, you know, post things that are of interest, post things that people will want to read, or pictures that people will want to see. And they post things, particularly as Christian women and women that want to influence, they post things that are uplifting, inspiring, informative, share information about their cause, what they do. One of the things that when I'm on social media that I find a little bit annoying is that you might know people or see people that have got really great jobs, or they've got businesses, you know, they've got little sidelines that they really want to see do well. And there's no mention of it on any aspect of their social media. And I personally think to myself, how can you expect your business to grow or more people to know about your charity or initiative that you're promoting if you don't mention it on social media? I just think that's just, me personally, I just think that it's just crazy. I think it's just crazy. And there's so many people who miss a trick by not really proper utilizing social media to let people know what they're about. Okay. Any questions? No questions?
Marcia, I just wanted to know, you know, when you're saying about the database earlier on,
Yeah.
right, I was just wondering, how do you get around the whole data protection thing?
Well, there's a site where you can go to find out information. It's the ICO, I think it is, which if you put in Google GDPR, I think it is, and say government or whatever, it will give you guidelines. But one of the things I do know, because I'm not an expert on that, is that people have to, once people give you their email and you've got permission from them that you can have their information, then it's fine. What it is, the thing that I understand about GDPR is that people have given you permission to hold their information, and that you've got to hold their information safely. And if they want you to remove their information, that you will comply and remove their information.
Okay.
If you have a certain amount of names, then you might have to pay a fee to the ICO, but I can't remember the full email address because I looked it up the other day. And so I would encourage people to do that. But it's getting buy-in. you know, once they've given you their details and you've let them know that it's going to be put in a database, that kind of covers you. It's just about giving them permission.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Here's another lady of influence, and I'm just sharing these details of giving these case studies to just give you an idea of what people are doing. I think that we learn from what others do, and whilst we have to carve out our own path, it's just good to know what other people have done to help them in terms of achieving whatever goals that they have. So this lady is Carol Stewart. I actually pray with her. She's my prayer partner. So we pray every Monday. And she runs a company called Abounding Solution. And it's a company that specializes in providing executive coaching for introverted women. So her specialism, even though she can help all women, her specialism is women that consider themselves to be introverted. Now, it came to a point where she reached a point where she was thinking, what can I do to grow my business? And she prayed about it because she's a believer. And the idea came to her that she could use blogging to market and promote her company. So what she did, I think she started about 3-4 years ago, is that she wrote blogs around a topic of introversion. So any topic that she might cover, whether it's marketing or you know, doing public speaking or whatever, it would be around the whole issue of introverts and how introverts could approach that. It proved to be a very successful strategy for her because it got her both views, readers, and clients. So currently, Carol Stewart, she now has almost 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is kind of quite phenomenal, really. And as a result of the profile that she's gained on LinkedIn, she gets a lot of inquiries, and she's regularly asked to give workshops and talks to corporate companies. She was recently, because of her consistency in her blogging on LinkedIn, she was recently voted one of the top LinkedIn voices of 2017, 2018, and 2019. So every year, LinkedIn, in all the various regions of the countries of the world it is based, every country chooses its top 10 voices on the platform. So in the UK, Carol was actually chosen as one of their top 10 voices on the platform. Obviously, this has made her a person of influence. So people in the media or anybody putting on an event where they want somebody who's specializes in the whole area of introversion and women and developing women leaders, Carol is somebody that gets regularly approached for that. And then earlier this year, she published her book called Quietly Visible, which again just added to her repertoire and has just kind of helped consolidate her position as a leading voice in that particular area. So the thing that worked for her was the whole thing about blogging, utilizing blogs. And that didn't really cost her much. It didn't cost her anything really, apart from her time putting together the articles and stuff. So anybody who kind of just wants to understand a bit more about blogging, because you can use all different platforms, the social media platforms, as well as have standalone blogs in order to post your stories. But blogging worked for Carol. In fact, it worked for Carol phenomenally well in helping her to become a person of influence. Because the thing is that we can be, wherever we are, we can be an influence. So at our workplaces, we can be one of the key influencers. Like I said, we all influence other people, but some people have more influence than others. So it's just about deciding what kind of influence do you want to have? Is it professionally, in your home, in your church, or whatever? And just kind of devising your strategy in order to be that. One area that is also good to use in terms of becoming influential is the media, and getting stories about what you do in the media. Now, when I was younger at The Voice, there was a lady, or there is a lady called Pastor Esme Beswick, and she actually celebrated her 85th birthday. But what I remember about Pastor Beswick when I was in my younger years, in my late 20s and early 30s, was that she was a regular visitor to the Voice offices, but she would come and visit the office when she had a major development in her ministry. So, for instance, when she set up a drug and alcohol project, she'd come along to my office with her picture and a press release, with a view for me to kind of do a story on her. And sort of like, because I'm kind of young, I'm learning as I'm going along. You know, I started to fully understand the whole thing about PR as I got kind of older. The older I got, the more I understood it. So for me, it's like, why is this woman always coming to the office? Little did I know that back then, that was part of her strategy to kind of raise awareness of what she was doing and become a person of influence. And I say all that to say that her projects, at one point, when it was open, she had Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana, went to open it. So you can imagine it was quite a few years ago. Also, as well, in terms of doing that, obviously, you know, when you kind of do things to raise awareness of what you're doing, what it means is that you become more visible to people. People start to take note of you. So Pastor Beswick made history when she became the first Black woman to be president of church, if I remember correctly, Churches Together in England, which is a kind of ecumenical body which brings together all the various denominations. And I think she held that position for about 3 or 4 years. And I personally believe that some of the PR things that she did played a part in helping her to get that job, which is really good. And she was a prominent minister within the New Testament Assembly. So the whole thing about the media is always on the lookout for stories. And by media, I mean traditional media, which is the internet, when I say the internet, websites, TV, radio, newspapers and magazines, and increasingly podcasts as well. And videos. A lot of people are doing their own video chat shows these days. So tell the media what you're doing. If something that you're doing is making history, like you're the first person to kind of do something. If you're doing something that's kind of unusual, if you're running a great community initiative, you've got a great personal story to share. For instance, you know, you might have been born in Peckham and now have a mansion in Windsor because you're a successful business person. That's a great story to share. Or you might be organizing a great event that you think warrants media coverage. Those are just a few things that I've listed there. But the media are always on the lookout for stories. So you shouldn't really be frightened of approaching them if you believe that you've got something of worth to say. Like I said, when I was at The Voice, one of the reasons why I started my PR company was because I felt that churches were not really making full use of The Voice. There was a whole page dedicated to church news. And whilst it was my job as a journalist to go out and get stories, you know, what I noticed with the other section of the paper was that they were constantly approached by organizations and individuals who wanted to get their stories in the paper. The media is a great platform to share and tell the world what you're doing. Even when I'm working at Keep the Faith, I still work at Keep the Faith now as a columnist, but we're always on the lookout for stories because it's a magazine. It's got a circulation of about 10,000, and then it's distributed via the database that they have, and they've got about maybe 40,000, 50,000 people on that database. So that means if you get a story in the Keep the Faith magazine and it's distributed, the physical copy is distributed and the digital copy is distributed, that's about 60,000 people potentially reading your story, reading about your charity, reading about your experience. And the thing about Keep the Faith, I'm talking about Keep the Faith because it's a publication I know and I work for. They are always on the lookout for stories, and they're always open for people to write articles for the magazine if it's got something to do with faith or health or community. So I think that's important to bear in mind if you're thinking about approaching the media or you've got a story to link to your faith or something like that. No questions? Hello? Okay, so I'm trying to think if I've ever been in the media. Yes, when I was younger, I remember a friend of mine interviewing me, but that was it, because I wasn't really seeking for that kind of media coverage, to be totally honest. I think it's important for us as Christian women, the whole thing about being salt and light, for us to also consider becoming influential beyond the four walls of the church. So I think it's good if people can, if as Christian women, we can think about getting more involved in civic society. I've got friends who do that. I know of people who've done that. And I think that more of us, if we want to see changes in our world, in our community, in our city, in our nation, then I think we have to step up to the plate and consider becoming things like school governors, local councillors, becoming a magistrate or justice of the peace, thinking about becoming trustees of charities, and not just trustees of our churches, but charities that serve the community. I think we should think about becoming volunteers. I mean, most of us, we volunteer in our church, but what about volunteering for many of the others, some of the other organizations that are out there that need skilled people to kind of help them achieve what they need. I think it's worthwhile, some of us thinking about joining a political party, because it's all about becoming influential, you know, being salt and light. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but I think some of us should think about it. And I think that we should also think about joining the profession. If you work and you're in a profession, then it makes sense to become part of the professional body for your industry, because we can bring about our influence in all places. You know, we're salt and light, you know. We're there to add some flavor. We're there to bring a difference. We're there to kind of illuminate what's going on. We're there to kind of bring about righteous values to things, and, you know, to promote God's justice. You know, we know that we as Black people, you know, we know that we are not always treated how we should be treated. Like, we know in schools that our children do not always get, our children don't always get taught as well as they should be, or get treated how they should be. But can you imagine what could happen if there were more Black governors at our schools? And in terms of local councils, more Black councillors serving in local government. You know, that's how we bring about change. We can bring about change through prayer, but we can also bring about change and bring in our spiritual and social influence to bear by becoming part of the institutions that are out there. There's a friend of mine that I talk regularly with, and when he was a young boy, he's a mature man, when he was a young boy, a young man, he used to go to some of the Black Power rallies that used to take place in London during the late 1960s and early 70s. And he said he went to a rally by a guy called oh God, I've forgotten his first name. Was it Huey Carmichael? Can't remember him, but I can't remember his name. It's gone out of my head at the moment. But he was head of the Black Power movement. And my friend went along there, born in Jamaica. His parents came here in the late 1950s. And he remembers a guy saying to all the young Black people that were at that meeting that they should become part of the institutions, that they should join the institutions and get a foothold there and become influential there. So, you know, we're not always going to change society by being outside of it. We're going to change it by sometimes being part of those very institutions where they need the godly influence to be there. Oh, I'm gonna another of my case studies is a lady called Claudine Reid, who was awarded an MBE for her work as managing director of a company called PJ's Community Services. I've included her as a woman of influence, partly because of her presence on social media. She's somebody that I've done some work for as well, but also because of her achievements. So she has worked in a number of various has served rather in various government departments, and was a social enterprise ambassador for their social enterprise department. She currently is a social entrepreneur in residence at Kingston University. She runs a women's ministry called Woman on the Front Line. She is an in-demand speaker. So she speaks actually across the country, at churches, at business events, in universities and colleges. She's also a wife and a mother, and she is a woman of influence. Her company has actually employed over the years, it's been going for maybe 30 years. It's employed over the years about 5,000 people. They've won local contracts, regional contracts, and national contracts. So she is a woman of great experience in terms of all that she's put her hands to do, and she's spoken across in various parts of the world. So I spoke to her about the whole thing about influence, her journey to being a woman of influence. And these are some of the things that she shared with me. This is a picture of her collecting an award for Croydon Business Excellence just last year. I like her hair, I like that picture actually. Anyway, as far as Claudine was concerned, when it comes to influence, you know, people have to ask themselves, who is following you and where are you taking them? I mean, that is something to really kind of think about quite deeply. She's a very disciplined lady. She loves to learn. She loves to read. If you follow her on social media, on Facebook, she's always talking about the books that she's reading, and her buzzword is evolve and capacity for more. Those are her phrases. And one of the things she says in terms of kind of being a leader, that the hardest person to lead is yourself. And it's because it's about being disciplined, being consistent, and being able to increase your capacity for more, and having the ability to evolve so that you can adapt in any situation that you find yourself. Anyone who knows Claudine will know that she is a strong woman and she doesn't let anything keep her down. So last year she had a mastectomy, which she has been very open about that. And she's actually used that experience of having major surgery and going through that experience of having cancer. She's actually kind of channeled that into a blog. So if you follow her on social media, every now and then she will put up a blog where she talks about that whole experience, how it impacted her. She'll encourage people, women, to go and get their breasts checked and all that kind of thing. So what she's done as somebody who is a woman of influence is that she's used that experience in a positive way to kind of influence other women in terms, so that they start thinking about their health, checking on their bodies, making sure that everything is okay. And because she's approached the whole thing about her illness in a very spiritual, very strong, very positive, uplifting way, she's also kind of giving women hope that sort of like, oh, if I do get cancer, you know what, because Claudine's coped, I'll be able to cope with it, because she's been very resilient in of, you know, dealing with this serious illness. So she's become a kind of a leader in terms of that whole thing about cancer and breast cancer and stuff like that. You know, it's very admirable, to be very honest. So she's using her experience to influence, enlighten, and empower others who might be going through that. One of the things that Claudine said to me is that she never set out to be a person of influence. She was more focused on developing her skill and becoming a better version of herself. But as a result of doing that, she became a person of influence, because, you know, like I said earlier, the whole thing about being influential, it's about you being consistent and pursuing excellence. Because the thing about being consistent, it means that you're doing something regularly. So even if people want to kind of brush you aside, they can't, because you're doing what you do all the time. People like people that are consistent, to be totally honest, because it just shows that you're dedicated to what you do. So sometimes you can just look at the whole thing about the NHS workers, what's happening now. They've been doing what they've been doing all the while, but now that we're in this major pandemic, and we're all recognizing and valuing their consistency and their hard work, and everybody's thinking that they are wonderful because they've been consistent in that. Claudine says her mantra is, I am intentionally increasing my capacity for more, so that I can evolve to be a conqueror to whatever I put my hands to. And then she also said to me, I've got my Bible here, that her favorite scripture is Ephesians 3, verse 20, where it says, now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. Glory to him in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. This is a Good News Bible. I think the New International Bible version says it's very differently, and I think it's more impactful. But that's Claudine. She is a woman of influence, and like she said, she didn't set out to be a woman of influence, but because she is good at what she does, she aims to be the best version of herself in terms of what she does. She has become influential. So, you know, you can be influential in anything. You can be influential in your work, you can be influential as a wife, you can be influential as a mother. You know, we've all got to remember, people are watching us, and they're watching how we do what we do. And if we do things excellently, we will become influential. We will be viewed as influential. In terms of relating back to PR, I think all women of influence should have this. If you're serious about stepping up, if you're serious about making a mark, if you're serious about wanting to be in the media, be on video, you know, be a voice out there, you know, apply to become either a governor or justice of the peace or something like that. I think it's important to have a bio where you detail your achievements. A bio is different from a CV. I can send you examples of bios if you want, but it just details your achievements. So if if somebody says, oh, think of, apply to be a, my brain has gone. No, it hasn't gone. If somebody wants you to be a speaker at their event, they will ask for your bio, not your CV, your bio. So your bio is just something which details some of your key achievements. It's not long. It's about 400, 500 words, but it just gives a synopsis of what you're about. You need photos done, but you need them done professionally. These days, when it comes to media, what you will find is that when I first started out in The Voice, we used to have a photographer. So anybody that I interviewed, I used to be accompanied by a photographer who would take their photo. It's not like that today. Most of the time when I do stories, I ask people now to send in their photos, any photos that they've taken, or if I do a major interview on somebody, I ask them for their photos. Obviously, if their photos are not good, I'm not likely to do the story. Or if I do the story, if it's not a news story and it's a feature or a major interview, I would shorten. I would cut the length of that interview because pictures are important, and I would want to use a great picture. So if you're serious about stepping up, then I would advise you to get some professional photos done. I put something about getting professional photos done on my social media the other day. And I stated that maybe 8 years ago now, I know I need to get new photos done. I paid £150 to get some photos done, and it was well worth it. Very much well worth it. It's well worth, sorry, I've accidentally moved my thing. It's well worth having either a website or a social media presence. If you can't get a website done, a social media presence is very important. And even though I'm not a stylist, what I do know is that it's good to think about your wardrobe and the outfits that you wear, because the clothes that you wear communicate who you are and where you're going. I'll never forget at one time at The Voice, there was we used to have the advertising department and we had the reporters, which were people like me, and we all used to kind of dress a bit. We used to dress okay, but it was nothing flash. Whereas our advertising department that was involved in the selling advertising space in the magazine, they were always very well dressed, always very well put together. And I remember one time, one of the reporters, I think she decided that she wanted to be a news editor. And instead of coming in to work in jeans, she started to come in to work wearing suits. Soon enough, she got promoted to that position as news editor because our clothes are important. I know people sometimes like to play down our clothes and how we present ourselves to the world, but it is very, very important. That young lady's name was Leslie Thomas. She left The Voice. She went on to work for the Daily Telegraph, and she went on to become, was it beauty correspondent at the Times newspaper, which is one of Britain's top newspapers. But I just use that example to say is that, you know, sometimes you have to dress for where you want to go. I have given consultancy to women in ministry who wanted they had set themselves certain goals. And one of the things that I did say to them is that, you know, I think it's worth your while actually going and talking to a stylist and getting a different style. And they did. And they went and took some great pictures in that style, because for every level where you want to go, sometimes you're going to have to upgrade yourself or change something in terms of, you know, the way that you present yourself to the world, or even how you talk or whatever. So for me, one of the things that I wanted to brush up on, and I still want to brush up on, is my public speaking skills. So last year I did a course with Angie Lamar, which was a course for comedians and speakers or whatever. But I'm going to be doing another course because I still want to up the ante in terms of my public speaking, because it is an area of mine in which I would like to develop. And I'm just mentioning that to say is that we've all got areas in terms of our profession or ministry that we need to hone and get better. And there's nothing wrong in terms of investing in our own personal development, because it will help us in terms of achieving our goals and helping us to get where we want to go as women who want to be influential. And in this day and age, being able to speak well in public is a very, very good and necessary skill to have. So in becoming a woman of influence, it's important to decide what your key aims are. And if you're already in a position of influence, you know, it's just about thinking, again, you know, thinking, what are my aims? How do I want to influence people? Where do I want to take them? It's good to write out your strategy. So I sent you a PR strategy, which is something that you can utilize for yourself. I would say to people, if you're a woman of influence, to open social media accounts and post regularly and strategically. I think it's important to network online and in the real world. And in this age of lockdown, being online has never been more important. I think becoming a woman of influence, it's important to devise a strategy or devise ways to get stories about what you do in the media if you're doing something of note and importance. I think it's important to pursue excellence in all that you do. And by excellent, it's just really about being the best that you can be and look at ways to improve yourself. And if you do set out a strategy, it's always good to regularly review and refine your strategy and see what works and what doesn't work. One of the things that I'm keen to get over to people is that it's possible to do PR on a budget. It's possible to kind of implement a PR campaign that is effective but inexpensive. And here's some of the ways that you can do that. So there's places online where you can actually set up a website for free. These are some of the places that you can do that. Wix.com, moonfruit.com, wordpress.com, and I'm sure that there's others as well, but these are just three that came to mind. You can write a blog. There's various blogging platforms where you can write a blog for free, but it's also worthwhile it's also worthwhile being aware that you can actually put your blog on your social media platform, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, I gave an example of somebody who's used LinkedIn very effectively. These days, you can make video on your smartphones and upload on social media. I've used videos. They're not the most brilliant videos in the world. I'm actually going to do a course about how to record a video on your smartphone. And why I really want to do the course is to find out how to actually do the editing on that, because that's not where I'm not very good at that. But you can make a video on your smartphone and upload it on social media. There's loads of free online tools that you can utilize to create leaflets and publicity materials. One platform that I use a lot is canva.com. They've got lots of really professional looking templates that you can use to make publicity materials. I've used them and I find them very effective. I do prefer to pay someone to design my leaflets, but in the interim, I go to Canva, and they've got some good templates that you can utilize. It's worthwhile if you want to get inexpensive publicity materials done, promotional materials done, like leaflets. You can visit www.fiverr, it's got 2 R's.co.uk. And then there's loads of events that you can go for free. And why I've put events is that networking is also a good way of communicating who you are, particularly if you're in business. I know of people that run businesses and they don't care about getting in the media. They don't care about using social media. But one thing that they do is that they go to loads of events because networking for them is how they get their business. So the whole thing about PR, as much as I've listed all the tools that you can use, there's certain tools that you can use that will work for you. So you might not want to get into the media per se, but you might be keen, you might be happy to just make your videos and upload them on your social media platforms and put them in your on your website and stuff. You know, all these things can help you on that journey to being influential, can help you on that journey to promote your cause or your initiative and stuff. It's just about having a strategy about how you're going to do that. But I think it's also important to know that you can do PR on a budget. I have done very effective campaigns where I've not spent a penny. I in one of my previous workshops that I've done on the Zoom platform, I remember sharing that I worked with Pastor Marjorie on an initiative where she wanted to hold an event where she a pampering event for homeless women. She wanted to do that for her birthday. And what I did was that I used Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp to let people know about it, and to also ask people to donate their services as well as toiletries that could be distributed to the women. It worked because she was overwhelmed with the number of people that donated to the cause. The women came, they had a wonderful time, they had dinner, they went home with a goodie bag, and that had just been promoted by using WhatsApp, social and social media, and it worked a treat. So you can do PR on a budget, even for events that I've worked, some of the clients that I've worked on that didn't have a big budget. I remember once I did a campaign for a lady who was involved in domestic violence, and it was just, we used social media a lot, and the media getting interviews about the subject. And what was good about doing that was that she, in terms of the Black church community, she was one of the first ladies to actually highlight that whole issue. But just doing a media campaign and using social media worked a treat in terms of helping her to communicate the message and encouraging the churches to think differently and deeply about the whole issue of domestic violence. Please feel free to contact me if you want to devise a PR strategy, implement one, you want assistance with a promotional campaign, you want to reach new audiences, write a press release or media consultancy. And before I conclude, I just want to know if there's any questions, because I've just done a lot of talking and I've not had, none of you've come back to me. I feel like, you know, I just feel like I've just been blah, 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 blah. But is there any questions?
Hi.
Hi, who's that?
My name is Flo.
Oh, hi, Flo.
Yeah. Just going back a bit, you talked about someone who was blogging on LinkedIn. I'm really bad with social media, though I do.
Okay, are you on it?
I am on it. Yes, I actually also started a blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the blog about?
It's called Flow Through to Victories. So it's like people who go through the storms of life and then the, victory, going through to victory, victories of faith, because I also went through a cancer journey.
Ah, okay.
So that birthed the blog. But I'm not very good with social media, to be fair. I do have a Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Instagram, but I just quite, I don't know what to say in using it properly. So I'm just learning that and trying to get that right. But I was sort of intrigued when you talked about someone blogging on LinkedIn. I didn't really understand that when you said blogging on LinkedIn.
what it is that, you know, you write a blog. A blog is basically an essay, yeah? So it might be 400, 500, 700 words.
Yeah.
And before, what used to happen was that people used to have blog sites that they set up. You know, they might say Flo Joe's blog page. Sorry, I'm just making that up as I go along.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then you would kind of do your blog, you'd write your blog out and you'd put it on your blog that would be on the web. So what's happened now is that because there's so many different platforms, what people now do is that they might write their blog in their blog, on their blog site, Flo Joe's blog, yeah? But they would also place that, the writing, what they've written, on their Facebook page.
Okay.
Or they might place it on LinkedIn. Obviously, you wouldn't have to place the spiritual thing on LinkedIn, but I think you understand the gist of what I'm saying, is that they now use the social media platforms as platforms to share their blogs. So Carol has got a website where if you go to her website, you will see some of her blogs. But what she also does is places some of those blogs on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has a blogging platform whereby you can actually write articles or blogs or whatever you want to call it.
I never knew that, actually.
Yeah, and post them on LinkedIn. So I did try. I posted about 2 and then I left it because I spend most of my time on Facebook, but I'm trying to understand LinkedIn. So when I'm talking about blogs, it's like people writing their things. There's a platform, there's a place in there where I think it's your section where you've got your name or whatever. It says that you can post articles, but I can't remember exactly. And that's where you would post your blog, your article, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. And in your opinion, when you're blogging, about how often do you think one should put a blog out there?
I think if I was blogging, I personally would blog at least once a week.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I was on Facebook,
yeah,
I would be posting things on Facebook every day. So whilst I might not post a blog a day, say for instance, you said that you talk about your cancer journey.
Yeah, and well, different. Yeah, so cancer journey, because while I was going through my cancer journey, I also had 2 family bereavements all in the same year. So I just sort of talked about all that in my blog. I did open a Facebook page, which honestly I just do nothing with. I have my personal Facebook page, and then I opened a Facebook page for this victory, but I'm not doing well with it. So I'm trying to now, get with all this. I have an Instagram page for it. I do nothing on that one.
Right. Also. Okay. This is. I'm on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a Facebook group, and I've got my own personal page. Yeah. Now, I personally find the Facebook page, which is for my business, Master Dixon PR, I personally find it a waste of time.
Exactly.
And I find it a waste of time because people hardly ever see it, because the way that they've set up the algorithms, you have to pay money to sponsor your ads for people to see it. So a lot of my stuff about my business, etc., I will place on my personal page.
Okay.
And stuff. So if I was yourself, I had blogs, I was sharing about my my past experiences and stuff like that. I might put them on my page, but I would definitely, I might put them on my business page or community page, but I would definitely put them on my personal page. Yeah. So I would encourage you to at least blog once a week.
Okay.
And then find other ways to communicate whatever it is that you want to communicate. So for instance, you might find an article that shares something of the ethos about the message that you want to communicate. So you might want to share that, or there might be interesting quotes that allude to aspects of things that you want to share. So you might share that. Do you understand what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
Yes. Or you might go to an event and you take a picture and you upload that. Or you might be reading a book that you think will be of interest to people. So you might post that. So Facebook or whatever social media that you're on can be used quite imaginatively in terms of helping you to kind of communicate. But if you've got a Facebook page and you really feel that you've got a message to share and you want to share it, then I think you need to, I would encourage you to be consistent in that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Marcia, it's not a question, but just say thank you. That was very good. It's Lorna, by the way.
Oh, hi, Lorna. You're the expert, you know. I was expecting you to kind of put your hand
I
up.
was going to say something about social media. I do workshops, short workshops, especially for beginners, mature beginners, so to speak. Those who are just getting on to probably just starting out in their businesses and just want to get to grips of just how to use social media platforms, the best ones for your brand or what you do. Marcia, you listed quite a lot of them there, and they're all good, but it's being able to identify which one will work for you. Where is your target audience? What platforms are they using? So a lot of research has to go into that. Yeah, but first of all, who your target audience is, where do they hang out, what platforms do they use? You know, there's some statistics about the age group that uses different platforms. You know, so it's not just opening accounts; it's just understanding, right, which one will work better for me for what I do. Yeah, so just thought I'd add that.
No, I think that's important. I think that's important. I was just kind of rushing through.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've got Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I ain't opening no more because I ain't got no time. I don't really like Twitter. I'm still trying to get the hang of it, but I'm there because I think I should have a presence. I go on LinkedIn and I'm just starting to understand how LinkedIn works.
Mm-hmm.
So I dip in and dip out, but I'll be on Facebook every day, and I'm finding that I use Instagram more as well, because I think that's where my
those are the two main key things that are being used by, regardless of your industry or your brand. Facebook and Instagram are the ones that are more impacting than others. Yeah.
But the other day, when I did one of my workshops, I didn't mention Pinterest, and then somebody said, why haven't you mentioned that? And because I don't use it. But
I noticed that you didn't. Yeah, Pinterest is very good. People don't understand that Pinterest is the second largest driver of traffic to websites. Outside of Facebook, it's the second largest. It drives traffic to your website.
Yeah, I just found it a bit confusing. But the lady who was doing the workshop, it's where she's got her biggest number of followers.
Yeah, you can.
She really
gets, and things like that. Yeah, it is very good. I revamped my Pinterest account for one of the companies or businesses that I run. Just uploaded just a simple board, put in some keywords, make sure I had some of the keywords, and within 7 days I had 3.9k views.
Oh wow, I don't understand it.
Yeah, views, and
maybe you should do a Pinterest. Maybe you need to do a Pinterest workshop, because sorry, I was going into.
I would love to do that actually, yeah, because I've got a couple of people who are thinking, especially when it comes to fashion or anything like that, Pinterest is, I don't think people realise it. It's very, very effective.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah, very effective. And with Pinterest, you're always on display. Years later, it's still up there unless you take it down.
Oh right, okay, I don't understand. Yeah. So
maybe
that's where you could do a Pinterest workshop.
Yes, I know. Get this one business that I'm just working on, just getting that out of the way, and then I'm going to refocus the training and social media stuff that I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, but yeah, I'll actually do that because I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
How many women on here are involved in women's ministry? Any women in here involved in women's ministry? No?
I mean, I in an informal way.
Sorry, who's this?
This is Flo.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying maybe in an I don't have a cutout women's ministry, but in an informal way. I talk a lot with women, sort of just mentoring them, getting people to their potential, and also especially women who've been through some pain or the other, or are going through health challenges, and just because of my journey, getting them to focus on the positives somehow, by faith, and get them where they need to be.
So do you think it's worth your while actually kind of formalizing that? Because sometimes, you know, particularly as kind of Christian women and stuff, we do a lot of things formally.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense to kind of sort of like move it to the next level, so it becomes a bit more formal in terms of how we go about helping people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get you.
Because I personally, I strongly believe that God is calling all of us as Christian women to rise higher in terms of how we do what we do. Like, so for me, this week or the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 people kind of give me a word, and it was all related to me stepping up my game and being a voice and dreaming bigger. Sorry, I forgot to talk about the whole thing about being women of influence and dreaming big. And I earlier, about 2 weeks ago, I read an article by this pastor called Timmy Barnett, and he's now 82, so he's looking back on his life. And he says that when he looks back in his life, the only thing that he regrets is that he didn't dream bigger and take more risks. Yeah. And I think that as Christian women, anyway, and Christian women, we need to learn how to dream bigger. And in terms of what we do, to kind of formalize it. So move from being doing it informally, like mentoring or whatever, and looking at ways and systems in which we can take what we do to the next level and stuff. Because there's a lot of women out there, particularly our young women now. I mean, all women need it, but particularly the environment in which our young women are growing up in, I think it's even more, it can be even more soul destroying than when we were growing up. And it's good to have systems, organizations or whatever that they can be part of, or we organize events or mentoring that they can get, so that they in turn can become the women that God has called them to be. Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah. So you need to get onto social media. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, it's interesting you say that, you know, this week you've had different words. So one of the things that came to me when I was going through my journey, which is where I birthed, I mean, a lot of things have actually been birthed through that. So, you know, it's about pain, birthing, purpose, so to speak. And this is what I called it, was flow through to victory, the storms of life and the triumphs of faith. And the other day I was speaking with a friend, and one thing that came to me, which I've never really thought of, was starting a YouTube channel where I give my testimony, but about other people also. And it could really be anybody. I guess so far in my head, I've targeted various women. So either someone who went through the pains of childbirth, not having a child, and then victory came and she has one now. Someone, you know, like me, who's gone through a cancer journey and is still standing. Because of my cancer journey, I did start a Facebook support group for women who either are presently have breast cancer or are survivors, you know. But even that, you see, it's still a small group. Because of this issue of social media, I found out I wasn't really posting stuff on it. I will talk to people one-on-one. I do a lot of speaking to people one-on-one. So just a few days ago, I went on and I said, I really apologize. My plan for this was a platform where we could all share our journeys, we could all support one another, people could be free, because we all understand what it's all about. And, you know, people who are still having the treatment and all that will get tips from others who've been through that journey, and that I want people to just come out and talk. I know that that's something a lot of people are not really able to talk about. So I want, which is why I even joined this, I just want to be able to use the social media platforms properly, even just to do an image. I have to, then my daughter is in school and I'm like, how do you do this? But now I'm trying to use Canva more.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, just trial and error with Canva.
Yeah. So what you said about posting on your personal Facebook page, I mean, really makes sense. So Sunday was the 1 year anniversary of my first surgery. I had a lumpectomy, and I just, you know, put that on Facebook, just thankful to God and all that. And yeah, there was so much, obviously, because of what it was, the response from all my friends and things. And then I was just thinking, oh gosh, I didn't put this on my actual Facebook page that I opened for this. I was actually trying to put it on Instagram and do it so that it shows on both Instagram and Facebook, but I just didn't get it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Lorna's an expert on that. Lorna, can we simultaneously post on Facebook and Instagram?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You got a link. Make sure you link your Instagram with your Facebook account. You can do it either way, from Facebook or Instagram, both ways really. So when you're posting on Instagram, when you're about to share, there are some toggle buttons on the last step before you share, where do you want to show it. And so if you've connected, the Facebook should come up, and then you switch that on. But I would recommend that you don't leave it on as by default, and only when you want to put it over to Facebook, because you may not want to always simultaneously post things on that or on Instagram or Facebook. So you can just link both from both platforms. Just do the link.
All right, thank you.
And it's always been good to be consistent in whatever you're saying, your story, your message, to be consistent, your layout, your colors, all of that to be consistent on both platforms.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Anyone else before I finish quite early? I didn't waffle on as much as I usually do. I'm sure it's everything. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you found it all very useful, what was shared. I hope that it will inspire some of you, particularly in terms of the whole thing about civic engagement, that it will encourage some of you to kind of be more involved in civic society. I hope that you have been enlightened to the fact that God is calling us to be women of influence, and how you can utilize PR to do that, and that the path to influence is being consistent in one's calling, but also being strategic. Like I said, when I started out, I just knew that I wanted to be powerful and influential. Didn't really have any idea of how I was going to go about it, but sort of like, you know, God intervened and has woven my life. Because sometimes life is like that. Sometimes you know exactly what it is that you want to do and what you want to be, and then there's other times where kind of God comes in and kind of carves your path, and that's the path that you go down. And that's what's happened to me. I never expected that I would have ended up working at the Voice newspaper, and I certainly didn't expect that I would be there for the length of time that I have. But I have been. But in the midst of that, I've also worked in other areas and had a great time. And now because of this lockdown, I've actually been kind of forced and kind of pushed into doing these workshops, teaching people about PR. And I've really been enjoying it, because I know that when people's minds are opened as to what PR can do for them in terms of helping them achieve greater success in their initiatives, it just makes me really quite happy to know that I can share that. And I know that once people start implementing things, that they will see a change, because there's lots of women out there who want to be successful, and they do projects, really great projects, but they don't promote them properly, and it's because they don't really know how to. So my whole thing is about just helping people, men, women, churches, business owners, whatever, to understand how they can use PR to get their message out. So Flo, if you go out there and you start putting your stuff out on your, you're doing it more regularly and you know, enjoying it, and people are getting what you're saying, I will feel that I have done my work.
Thank you.
So yeah. So thank you to everyone who's joined. Are you sure you don't have any questions? You know, ask now or forever hold your peace. Because if you ask me after this session, I'm going to charge consultancy fees. Hello. So any questions? You better pick my brain now. Okay. Wanna have money? Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining me today. I've enjoyed sharing, and have a good evening. But if you want to email me, if you've got any general questions you want to email me, please feel free to do so and stuff. I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Marcia.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
All right, then
Very
take care.
informative.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for joining me. I feel honoured.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.